Wow, I definitely regretted doing that. Why did I do that? I'm so gonna regret this in the future. That was one of my biggest regrets I have ever made. If you've ever found yourself saying any of these statements or anything similar, tune into this video because this is a good one. You're gonna want to listen to this one. Beautiful people, what's going on? Hope you're doing amazingly well and staying safe and healthy within the circumstances going on. Today we're back for another Let's Talk Mentality video, and this week we will be talking about regrets. Regrets is all about something that you've done previously that you look back on and think, I wish I never did that. Or you look back and you think, why did I do that? You might feel guilty about it, you might feel a lot of pain towards it, or you might feel a bit of embarrassment. Any kind of like awkward feeling probably is related to regret, things that we just want to just completely forget about whenever it crops up or it gets brought up in conversation, or you're at home, you're on your own and suddenly it just crops up in your head and you're thinking, why on earth did I do that? And that's fine. We've all had times where we've looked back at something and thought, yeah, I really should have done that. You might look back at something in childhood, young adolescence, where we are right now. You might look back at something and, you know, be saying sentences like, I regret doing that. I really wish that I hadn't ever done that. Why did I do that to myself? That was my biggest regret. I just find with regret, it's something that we found awkward, or it's something that we look back on and we don't wish to relive it. It's something that we wish to just put at the back of our minds. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to bring it up. If it ever does get brought up, we feel embarrassed. It might raise our anxiety. It might make us feel awkward or awful as a person. You might think that that was somebody that was previously yourself that is not anymore, and now you're a brand new whole person. Like, you just think, yeah, that person just wasn't me. Like, I regretted everything that I did back then. My thoughts on regrets have completely changed. As I've grown up, I've just not really believed in them anymore. I just found that regrets are more like mistakes, probably about in my early 20s. I remember having a conversation with a friend and just saying, I completely regret ever going on that date with this person. I regret ever saying that to somebody. I regret ever trying to do that for myself. Like, why did I do it? And my friend turned around to me and was like, but you shouldn't regret it. If it was something that you wanted at the time, if it was something that you wanted to go for at the time, it shouldn't be a regret. If it's something that you wanted to do, if it's something that you thought would benefit you, or you thought was a good idea at the time, it's something that you wanted to go forward with, why would you regret that? If it was something, all of those things that you wanted to do, you wanted to see what happened and you just wanted to go for it, and the aftermath wasn't quite as you pictured it, and like, is that it? It didn't go as you'd planned, it didn't work out the way you wanted it to, it didn't have the same effect that you were hoping it would have in the long term, that's absolutely fine. We go through so many situations every single day where we're in that. I can give you a few examples of these regrets that I used to have. I was probably about 14 at the time, really had a crush on this guy, like really fancied the pants off him. We were talking quite a bit and we were getting along really well. At the time, that's when, you know, if you like somebody, you'd go and ask them out because that was just the norm at that age. I look back at it now, I think, cringe moment, but it's just so funny. I went on, obviously we got to know each other, we got chatting, you know, we were coming quite close in that, and I thought maybe there's a chance that something more could happen. Maybe I should ask this guy out. Girls at the time didn't ask guys out because it was the norm for guys to do that for girls, and it's still seen the same way now, which I don't really think it matters. Like, a guy or girl could ask anyone out. Anyway, going off track. I wanted to ask this guy out. I went to go and give him my number because I didn't want to go and tell him in person. I think I'd said something like, I've got something to tell you but I can't tell you in person, so if I give you my phone number, would you be able to call me? And I think some of his friends came along at the time, he got rushed off his feet, so that didn't happen. And then I got one of my friends to do it for me instead the next day. I don't know what was said because she did it outside our tutor room, so I didn't hear anything, and all of a sudden the door burst open. I just heard this noise, and it was coming from the guy that I fancied. And then a few seconds later his friends came over and they were like, oh, do you fancy so and so? And I thought, why did I do that? That was, oh, like it was the worst feeling at the time, because obviously you're wanting that outcome to happen, you know, you have this expectation, and when it doesn't go through, you automatically have that regret, and you automatically think, why did I do that to myself? And you have all those awkward, horrible, icky feelings going on inside of you, and you just wish you hadn't have done that, or you wish you did it differently, or you wish you hadn't done it at all. But looking back on it, you look back and you think that's actually like quite funny. But then I also look back and think, at least I had the guts to go and say this to a guy. At least I had the audacity to put my cards on the table, put my feelings out there and say, I like you. And then you get that back. Obviously it wasn't done the right way because I got my friend to do it, but you get the gist. And the same could be said for when I went to my first university for the first time. I only lasted for about 6 months, and I could have looked back on that and thought, why did I do that? I instantly regret ever going to university. Then if I regretted going, doesn't that mean that there was nothing about it at all? Didn't I gain anything from it? Wasn't there anything that I could have taken from that and thought, do you know what, like that was actually a good thing, that was a good reason for me to go? There was no point in me ever regretting those 6 months, because in those 6 months I transformed so much. Like back then it probably didn't feel like it. Looking back on it now and where I am now, I have transformed into a completely different person. It gave me more life lessons, it gave me more of what I wanted to do with my life, what I didn't want to do with my life. I didn't want to do pediatric nursing in the end. Other things happened within that situation as well, and I could have completely regretted that and thought, yeah, that was like the biggest thing. Like I regret meeting these people, or I regret moving away from my family, when really all I was homesick all the time. Like I could have just been regretful ever since leaving. But having that path really taught me a lot. It really gave me a bit of a oomph to really be like, okay, so this didn't work out, what's going to happen now? And that's the thing with regrets, as it's pretty much summed up, it's something that should motivate you, it's something that you should learn from, it's something that was a part of your life because it's something that you wanted to do, you wanted to try, you were hoping to have this outcome for yourself, and it didn't work out. So what? That means that you've learned something from it, you've done something, you've tried something. Okay, so what's next? Could I do it a different way? Could I go and do something else instead? And that leads me to kind of what are the things that you should do for things if you feel regretful. If you are here now, if you are living now, if you are watching this video now, remember regret as something that you don't have to regret. It's something that has brought you to this pathway today, and it's something you can control your mindset on, and it's something you can learn from. So just kind of a bit of advice slash tips that I've done to not believe in regrets anymore, and just, you know, push them away as something that's a part of my life, rather than an everlasting regret that I'm always going to look at and think, oh, like why did I do that? I don't do that now. So here are the things that I do regularly if ever I've come about that. So treat regrets as mistakes. As I've just said previously, if it's something that you wanted at the time, don't think of it as a regret. It was something that you wanted to do, something you wanted to try, and if it didn't work out, or something went wrong, or you didn't do things the way you wanted it to, or you made some errors and whatnot, treat it as a mistake, something that you've learned from. We're human beings, we all make mistakes. If we don't make mistakes, how are we going to learn and grow as people? How are we going to go beyond our comfort zones and be a mentally strong person? Like, how are we going to do that if we don't make these mistakes in the first place? If you treat them as mistakes, it's easier to overcome. If you treat mistakes as a natural part of being a human being, it becomes easier to overcome, and it becomes an easier transition to move on to the next thing. Whereas if you're always living in regret, you're always living in the past, you're never going to move forward, you're never going to be optimistic about the future, you're always going to be living in the past. As people that we want to be our best selves, living in regret, living in the past, that's not how we move forward. And I think just treating them as mistakes is a better way to think about them, rather than treating them as lifelong regrets that you're never going to get over. Be constructive about them. So if you're regretting something right now, if there's something that you look back on and think, I completely regret that, be constructive about what you're thinking. Say, for example, the whole crush thing that I had years and years ago. If I regretted that to this day, if I still looked back at that and thought, I completely regret that, I should not have done that. What was so regretful about it? Writing it down, for example, so really taking the problem apart, really taking the pieces away, thinking, I could regret regret asking my crush out. But then what would have happened if I never did that in the first place? One, I would never have known that he was easily embarrassed person, and also that he's not a very private person, because then he wouldn't have shouted about it to all his mates and made it into this big thing. So would I have wanted to have been in a relationship with somebody like that? Would I have wanted to go out with somebody like that? Absolutely not. And then also I found out obviously that he didn't have the same feelings as me. Great, that means that I could have moved on. I could go and find somebody else that did like me the same as me. I know that's like a silly example because like that's teenage years, but the littlest things from childhood and when you're a teenager, they can have such a lifelong impact on you, and there's nothing wrong with saying that it affected you or that you still regret it and whatnot. Just be constructive about it. Just really analyze it and really ask yourself, what did you learn from that experience? What mistakes did you gain from that you thought, actually I could have done this better or I could have done that better? It's being mentally constructive about it rather than treating it as an emotive response to something that you just don't want to face ever again. Face it, take it apart. It's a really good idea to put it down in writing, because then you've got it visually there right in front of you, and then it's just not all clogged up in your head with one thought bouncing off another thought all the time. Be realistic about it. With my going to university example, I learned in the end that I didn't want to do that course. I learned that I wasn't ready to move away from home yet because I just missed my family and friends here so much. I learned that I needed to stick up for myself a bit more. I learned that I can be an independent person because, as just goes to show, I have moved away from my family and friends. I've lived by myself for that amount of time, so that gave me insight for the future that yes, I can do this because I've done it before. Yes, it wasn't a greatest experience, but it doesn't mean the next experience won't be as great the next time. Maybe it means that it will be even better the next time. So yeah, just be constructive about it and just sit yourself with it, and don't let it hang heavy on your heart or on your shoulders. Really think about, is it really a big regret, or is it something that you can move past and just learn from? That kind of goes into the next one of talking to people about it. 9 times out of 10, when you tell people about your regrets, I know sometimes, you know, things that seem like the bigger regrets or the bigger things that you don't want to talk about aren't worthy of talking about, which is absolutely fine. If it's something that's too heavy-handed, then just deal with it as you possibly can for yourself. If it's like something little, like just with like my crush talk about it with somebody else, because I promise you 9 times out of 10 they've been through something similar. They'll come up with their own story. Like I've told people before, like, oh, I asked my crush out and he came in and said this, and then somebody else will be like, oh my gosh, like that happened to me. Like I liked somebody, I went and did this for them, I bought them a present and they just threw it in the bin. Do you know, like that kind of thing? It gives you an emotive response with somebody else. You build a connection with somebody and you share something together. Your regret will just automatically die down. You'll just completely see it as the littlest, tiniest thing that's been having a hold on you for such a long time, and now you've just said it to somebody else and they've shared something with you. It's just automatically gone down and you'll feel so much better about it. Obviously talk to people that you trust and people that you know you can share these things with and feel comfortable about. Don't go and say it to somebody that you're not that close with or you don't feel that confident to talk to about it, so obviously you don't know what their reaction is going to be. Definitely talk to people that you trust and that you can have these kind of conversations with, because it builds trust, it builds communication, you'll feel better about it, and it's just a positive thing all round. Obviously writing it down as well, so if you do keep a journal, putting things like that down is great, because then you can just read it back. It's in there in a diary. If you don't want to talk to anybody about it, you've got it there yourself, and it's a nice way of releasing your emotions, journaling. Even if it's just a simple, you know, few sentences, something that you've learnt or taken from it that's given you something to talk about. There's a lot of self-development books out there. Brave New Girl, that's the one that I keep raving about because it's amazing. They've got a load of exercises in there that are great for really splitting things into categories and really analysing your thoughts and feelings, rather than just being it a very black and white thought. For example, you're gonna have this regret for the rest of your life and that's it, or you can have this regret or you can learn from it, treat it as a mistake and grow from it, and that's a better way to look at it. Listen to podcasts as well. There's so many podcasts, especially dating ones. Like I love hearing about dating ones just because they're quite funny, and you hear about people's experiences and what they've been through before, and it just gives you that sense of relief that, oh, somebody else has been through it, like somebody else has been through that experience, it's not just me. And again, it's that whole communal thing of you are not alone. People have had regrets, they have had something in their life that they felt really bad about, or that they look back and think, why did I do that to myself? Should not have done that. But you know, that's an amazing thing because it shows you're human, and it shows that you've learned things, you've grown from things, you've done things that maybe you look back on and think, oh yeah, like that wasn't the most sensible thing. But then we can't be sensible 100% of the time. We can't always be our best selves 100% of the time. We can't always be right 100% of the time, because we would just never learn, we just never grow. And if I'm honest, it'd be a bit boring. It's nice to share things with people. It's nice to know that there are other human things that happen for people as well as you. For a long time, I've just never believed in regrets. I just think that there's something that happened and it was something that you wanted at the time, and you just learn from it, you grow from it, you find out what you want for yourself, what you want from your life, and there's no harm in that at all. I just think there's no point regretting anything. Do what you need to, do what you feel is right at the time, and worry about it later. 9 times out of 10 it will probably work out for you anyway. Hope you enjoyed this video. Loved doing this video once again. I love these Let's Talk Mentality videos. If you've got any other ideas that you want me to talk about in future, let me know. Pop a comment down below, like this video, share this with as many people as you possibly can. If you feel like this can help somebody else you know, please share it with them. Let them know that there's so many other mentality videos going on, there's ongoing videos coming, so don't fret if there's something that hasn't been talked about yet. I'm sure it will be talked about in the very near future, but until then, I will see you in my next video. Take care.